Hello, everyone. This is the Special Parks Board meeting, and we'll call to order. I would like Matt Mueller to say a few words.
Right. Well, we've got the, obviously the public comment section is here, but what we've got is everyone has signed up who wanted to speak, so rather than just do it all in bulk right here, I think it might be more efficient, more informative to the board if you have your public comment during the actual item that you'd like to discuss. So unless anyone objects to that, when it's time to talk, we'll just move. We'll just call the people up who've signed up to talk to the different agenda items during the discussion of those agenda items. That way we can deal with one issue at a time, and hopefully we can minimize any confusion.
Wonderful. Okay. Discussion, the first one is discussion and consideration of duck hunting at Liberty Lake.
Okay.
And I'd like Matt to kind of brief us.
Okay, this is an item that we've had a request from the public, and I believe Mr. Fincher's here to give a presentation of duck hunting. This was an item that was allowed at Liberty Lake. There was an annual draw for blinds. It, I think, lasted until, was it July of 2008, Maxine?
March of 2008.
So, and there's been requests to revisit that, that component. It hasn't been allowed the last 4 years, but we've had requests from the public to revisit that for allowing duck hunting to occur at Liberty Lake. And I'll turn it over to Maxine to give a little history of what they saw and some of the reasoning why it was turned in the first place, and then I believe there's people to speak to this item in the audience.
Okay.
Thank you, Matt. This was brought to the Park Board meeting in January of 2008 because there had been discussion of safety issues out at Liberty Lake. At one point in time, Mr. McBain, who lived in the lake house, found buckshot in the outside walls of his home. That was probably one of the main issues. It was brought to the Park Board at 2 times where they asked for it to be tabled, and then in February they voted after Chief Devereaux, and he's here tonight so he can elaborate on this a little bit more if necessary, but he recommended that we also cease from having any kind of hunting, bow. I think at one time we had bow hunting and duck hunting out there, and he thought that because of safety we should prohibit all types. The Park Board at that time, they voted unanimously to take it to council with a recommendation to cease that. The council acted on that, and it began, as Matt said, in July 15th.
2008.
Of 2008?
Yes, of 2008, yes. Thank you. Also, there was times that the duck blinds were left. Each hunter, or however it was done, was supposed to remove the duck blinds once the season was over. And more often than not, we had at least 1 to 2 blinds that the Parks Department had to take care of moving. So these are some of the issues. If Chief Devereaux would like to speak to that a little bit more, I would certainly feel like that, but I'll turn it back over to Matt.
Yeah, and so that was just kind of the history of how we got to where we are now. Again, that's the decision at this point. Some of the things that have changed since that point was that the rule-making authority has now been placed in the Parks Board hands. So this is obviously a policy decision that you guys will need to determine. And so we'll. I think that's really all that staff has to present about it. I will say, as you know, that currently Liberty Lake is in the final stages of its master planning program, and these were meetings that started last October through meetings with the Parks Board and City Council, and City Council has indicated that the future plans for land growth around Liberty Lake has been slated for partial residential development. So that is probably several years away, but that's something that you do need to be aware of. That was put in the plan as a priority by council recently. So.
Okay. Is the officer here?
Officer Gibbs? Yes.
Do you, are you the one that was present in 2008? When when the duck blinds were, when the duck hunting was eliminated?
No, ma'am.
Is he here?
That would have been Lieutenant Lyons, and no, ma'am, he's not. He doesn't work for the police department.
Okay,
What he
okay,
said was that was Lieutenant Lyons, and evidently he's retired.
okay, okay. So you could fill us in a little bit on anything about the duck blinds? I mean, the duck hunting?
Well, what exactly are you asking for? I may not be following. I'm sorry.
Probably, I think we've got everything. Maybe we should just go
Yeah,
on
I mean, I
to
think
people.
at this point, we've got staff
talking.
present to ask or to answer particular questions. We
Yes.
do have, I think, looks like 4 people signed up to speak to the issue. So
Okay.
I would recommend that we hear, kind of from them, and that way that can spur, kind of the discussion from the Parks Board, and we can answer whatever questions that you may have that has been brought up, from the presentation of staff, and then what will be brought up based on comment from the public.
Okay, how can you tell from this what is duck
Okay,
hunting?
item 3
Who's
is
here
the
for
duck
duck
hunting.
hunting?
So I think the first one you have on there is Chuck Stepp. to
Chuck
sign up,
Stepp.
so.
Okay, thank you.
Some of you may not know, I was the lake ranger for 30 years.
Okay,
When we first started with the duck hunting, it was for Logan County and Guthrie residents only. Then we found out that you have to buy a federal duck stamp and an Oklahoma duck stamp, which makes it a federal thing. Those are migratory birds. You had to open it up to the complete public of Oklahoma or the United States, since they were collecting money. We opened it up. We had a few from Guthrie that were very, very good hunters and really good about taking care of their place. Unfortunately, we got Edmond and Oklahoma City involved in it, and they trashed the place. They would leave their duck blinds. We had to tear them down, as Blue can probably tell you. They would tear their camouflage off, throw it in the lakes, and trash the place. So it was bad. It was very dangerous. We'd walk up on a blind, get a shotgun pointed at us. Didn't know if it was going to get shot. We had a lot of thievery, people stealing duck decoys, and people come out the next morning, they'd be gone. We never found them. There were shots fired at other duck blinds. It was dangerous. The thing we finally decided, at the cost of $20 a blind, we had 22 blinds, that's $440. It wasn't worth one day's danger to do that. So we recommended they cancel that. If we could go
When
back
was
to
this?
Guthrie residents only, I think we would do good, but that's a violation of federal law. That's discrimination.
When was this?
This was from 1974 to 2002 when I was there.
Okay, okay. Okay, thank you so much.
I believe that's Paul Fincher. You're signed up next.
Well, I was one of those people during Chuck's time, and I enjoyed it. I was a Guthrie resident. I had my blinds out there. We picked them up. There was probably some incidents of people stealing decoys. I agree with that. But they could have eliminated a lot of the problems, and being shot to put down to 12 gauge only, no 10 gauges, and thin out the blinds. The money value could be increased a lot. It's nothing to pay $1,800 for a deer lease now. In a duck blind at Liberty Lake, if you're chosen and won it, you should be able to pay $200 for it or more. But the process of being able to apply for that blind you'd have to have all the federal stamps and the Oklahoma stamps and the conservation stamp, plus a Guthrie permit, which by the way, you could do it online, all of that. And you keep the $15 entry fee with no limit, non-refundable. And Langston was a good example of that. And average people over there spent $300 on the application and then paid $200 for the blind. So I hope you consider that duck hunting is not necessarily a dangerous sport. It's the people that's behind it. And if you require the youth to have the hunter's education and all of that, you won't have that problem. And the federal ranger, you know, he would hold a class, I'm sure, to help that we get the youth certified if they need it. And also there's free programs through Ducks Unlimited and through the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife. As far as the lake house being shot with buckshot, you don't shoot ducks with buckshot. And it's BBs. So, you know, there's some things that you could curtail this and make it a great experience for the youth of Guthrie and limit it to a Guthrie address only. And it's a chance that you're doing it a blind, so you're not breaking the federal law when you do it as a chance. And that's legal in Oklahoma. Oklahoma City does it, Hefner does it, Woodward does it. People over in Tulsa, I tried to get all that list of the cities, but I haven't received it yet. So anyway, there are some grants out there that you could get to restore part of that wetland out there too. And I'm the man you can see about doing that. So also, there are some local people that would have volunteered to do work on the roads. So I hope you consider and let us reopen it up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul, could you answer a couple questions about, just for our knowledge, that again, tell me to be quiet if you don't.
No.
But when for those of us who may not be knowledgeable about when people would be out there, generally, what would the season be for duck hunting at Liberty Lake?
From about the middle of October, the season hadn't been set yet.
Okay.
Usually it's around the 23rd of October, goes until February.
Okay.
You get there about 45 minutes to an hour before sunrise.
Okay.
Legal shooting time is 30 minutes before. And I would make another suggestion too. You shut the hunting off at noontime and let the horseback riders and that go in there.
So is there, and I was looking at a previous year's schedule, and that's why I was asking. I didn't know if this year's schedule had been determined yet. Is there a break in the season? Is it kind of
split season? Yeah.
The split season?
That usually comes about, say, probably November the 5th this year, whatever that Sunday is.
Okay, and generally then, so they're out there and, you know, kind of in the off season, but they're off season of what would be normal recreational time at Liberty Lake, and then time that they're out there is generally 30 minutes before sunrise, and you say they're out of there. I mean, even if there wasn't any regulation on time, they'd be out of there before noon.
Yeah, you can make your own lake rules.
Okay.
For that.
But also, you know, if it was to happen at the Parks Board, you know, we would obviously want to kind of adapt it to what, you know, how long they would actually be out there. And so, I mean, generally, it's not an afternoon sport, it's a morning sport.
Right. Okay. It's a morning sport.
Morning and evening?
Yeah, sometimes evening, but you're going to get too much pressure. Too much pressure, too small a lake to let them hunt day and night. You want to have a good quality sport instead of overkill. So the other thing I should have asked about is, I guess the newspaper's sending out a survey. Is that right?
Well, that's a little bit of a confusing issue. That's not on this issue. That's on, there's another issue involving duck hunting as to whether or not to allow, this is an issue that's with the council, not the Parks Board, whether or not to extend hunting opportunities in land that's zoned agricultural 2 rather than just ag 1. So that's kind of, it's a little bit of confusing because they're happening parallel, but that's not this issue.
Okay.
That's on private property.
Right, that has to do with private property and zoning.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Let's see.
Bill, is that Bill
Bill-
Hayden? Is that Hayden? All right. Is that, we pronounced that right?
I thought I was coming to get a chance to get the point. The point, Guthrie Lake, and then is one of the best bass fishing lakes.
Oh,
Liberty Lake is
wait a
one of the
minute.
best.
Wait, just before, we're still going to talk about duck
Yep,
hunting.
Duck hunting? Okay.
So you
Sure
can
are.
do that?
I'm going to,
Okay.
bear with me. And so, Liberty Lake is one of the best duck flyways in Oklahoma. And I've got two boys. We started hunting Liberty Lake when they were in grade school. They had two friends. They would go with us. So we hunted Liberty Lake while they're grade school, junior high, high school, college. And now they're all fathers. So the Friday before opening duck season, I'd fix chili for all of us. And then Saturday morning, we'd go out for the duck hunting. And also taught them how to train dogs. And all four of them went to hunter safety courses, which is required, but they went anyway. And then taught them how to identify the different ducks and stuff. So when duck hunting was shut down at Liberty Lake, it became more of an issue for me. It was a tradition for our family. It was a way of life. Every Saturday morning and Sunday, we were at Liberty Lake. And then, except when the old man had to work, I requested my sons to spread my ashes on the point at Liberty Lake. It's that good. And we hunted other places. We'd go to Canton during the split. And, but no matter where we went, we always talked about Liberty Lake because it is unbelievable. You get the combination of the divers and the dabblers. The divers are like the Majesties, the canvasbacks. They're the ultimate duck in the world. And so it hurt when you all shut it down. And I agree with Paul. I guarantee you a duck hunter didn't shoot that house. But I wasn't there, so I can't say that for sure. The one thing you can look at doing too is, and I can assure you, if you would open duck hunting back up at Liberty Lake, we can police ourselves. We can put together a committee and we can take the duck blinds that are left. We'll use them next year. That's what you do with the duck blind. You scavenge the parts, you replace what's bad and put on new and make it good for the following years. Same thing on the cutting down the cedars and stuff like that. And then as far as looking at residential, that's an option for y'all, but you're sitting on a gold mine out there. In both the bow hunting, the duck hunting, the fishing. Right now there's a lot of ranchers who are converting from livestock to hunting because it's big business and it's getting bigger. When I was raised, my sisters didn't hunt. Now ladies are coming on strong in the hunting environment. And what you're looking at more and more people getting involved. The other thing is, and this is very important, it's one of the few things you can do altogether as a family. There's nothing better than sitting in a duck blind on a frosty morning with me drinking coffee and those boys as they grew up drinking hot chocolate and then switching to coffee. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox, but I miss Liberty Lake. But it's a money-making son of a gun if you all would do it, take a different approach to it.
How were you lucky enough to get a blind every year, year after year, if it's a drawing?
Since there was the four boys, and we could only have 4 draws, and it was very disappointing when we come in here for the drawings and, there'd be 4 of us and we get what they call a blind, a blank sheet. And several of the years, let's see, I want to say out of all the years since 94 or 95, we didn't get a blind one time. And there may be twice. I'm getting older, so I don't remember as well. But and several of the blinds were not as good. Everybody who duck hunts Liberty Lake, they dream of the point. And there's nothing more fantastic than sitting there in that blind on the point and watching a flock come over the dam. But It's a great place.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, Jeff Goodwin, about duck hunting? Is this about duck hunting? Yeah. Okay.
And I did forget to mention, just in case it does become an issue, we've got a little timer over there. We'd like to limit everyone to, is it 5 minutes max that we generally go? So if she starts giving you the eye, and it's a scary eye, I get it in staff meeting.
Basically, all I had is I don't have a problem with people duck hunting out there as long as all the safety issues are addressed and all the issues of the cleanup and all that. That's basically what I was going to bring up too is you know, it can be safe if the right rules are put in place, but that is for you guys to decide. That's all I had.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay,
That's all the public comment on that item.
okay,
So
so that's
um,
now
Time for you guys to discuss your thoughts and ask us any questions that you may have. Now it's your time to just kind of discuss
Okay.
the issue.
Well, my original thing is, if it's been against the law since 2008, why have people been duck hunting out there?
No, they haven't been.
No duck hunting?
Well, I mean, we haven't had an official draw. We haven't had blinds. I mean, I can't, obviously with anything, you can't say that it's never happened, but it hasn't been a city-sponsored program.
Okay.
It hasn't been out there since 2008 officially.
Okay. That was one of my questions. Anybody else?
I have a question about the stamps that were mentioned earlier. Can someone kind of explain that a little bit more about what needs to be purchased and what revenue our city gets from that?
If I could, Mr. French, I think you're kind of the expert in the specifics. If any duck hunting specific questions would probably be much better answered by him than it would us. But
Okay, ask me what you want to.
I wanted to know what stamps need to be purchased by who and what revenue our city receives from that.
Federal duck stamp, everybody except, including the President of the United States has to buy one if you want to shoot any waterfowl
Okay.
in the United States and Canada. The Oklahoma has a conservation stamp that you must do, which is required to do. And also the hunter's education is required, you know, to be able to do that.
So it would be a situation where if they did decide to allow it and we did have a draw, that to even be eligible to put your name in the drawing, they would have to prove that they had those three items?
Right. And that shouldn't be no big deal. They could show you. A lot of people have a lifetime license, then every year they have to buy a federal duck stamp.
The city gets none of that.
Right. The city wouldn't get
Well,
anything off of that.
well-
We would get whatever was charged.
But no, you got to have access to Liberty Lake, so you'd have to have a permit. So, I mean, there's more revenue there for you. Plus, there's a lot of ways to do this where you can make some mega bucks instead of doing what you're doing. No offense, but
Also, the game warden regularly patrolled Liberty Lake, and he would check our stamps, and also you're only allowed to have room for 3 shells in your shotgun, and he had a tool that he'd stick in your
Right.
shotgun and make sure you were legal there too.
And also a maximum number of people in each blind.
right.
You couldn't have 12 people camped out in one blind.
Yeah.
So is the ranger, what, is he gonna check at sunrise and maybe somebody comes around? I mean, who would
Sometimes they'll check
patrol
you
it?
before you start. Sometimes you'll sit there and wait till you get done shooting and then you'll check your guns.
I don't think we have 24/7 security.
And that would be an issue for local law enforcement. It would, you know, the checks I believe they're kind of referring to would be the state game warden, you know, someone at this. That time of year, we don't have the lake patrol officer out there. He's, you know, as we've talked about, he shifts from being a lake patrol officer during the summer months to being the school resource officer during the year. So our presence out there, especially back in those areas, would be limited.
You could probably check with him. I bet you he's patrolling it right now for spotlight.
Also, you know, the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife, they have agents or whatever you want to call them that come around and do random checks. And also the federal guy, he does live here in Guthrie.
I have a question for you. That thing that was a chance, you called it a chance, and that would limit everybody to just Guthrie residents only.
You
How
can,
does that
can
work?
choose who you want to hunt on Guthrie property. You own Guthrie, that lake, and the surrounding area. You can choose that. You can limit it to Guthrie residents only, and it's a chance that you get that blind. It's just like they do at Thunderbird in Oklahoma City. That's how they get around that. And they have their own requirements, and you can set those.
Okay.
And I'd be glad to help you all, and I'm sure Bill would help me. I'm sure we'd get some more too.
Okay.
I would like to help you if you want to do a separate board. Because we
Okay.
police our own stuff, and the duck blinds that are left out there, you could put a deal where they get a fine if they don't move it within 20 days at the end of the season,
Okay.
of the
Okay.
last season.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions about this? What I'm starting to see is well, you guys over there, don't you have any comments from your point of view? I'd sure like to hear, all points of view.
Well, the police department basically we'll enforce whatever it is that you guys decide, first and foremost. That's the case. The only issues that we have, I think, as a department, of course, is going to be center on safety and enforcement. And so that's kind of our main deal. Some of the questions I would have is shutting off all other uses, for instance, horseback, hiking, bicycling, camping possibly, because of the size of the lake. We've heard last time, like Mr. Finch had said, he said, the maximum effective range of a 12-gauge shotgun with birdshot is 40 yards. However, you don't want to be standing at 50 yards when I fire a 12-gauge shotgun at you with birdshot or anything else. The deal is that there's a max effective range, and then there's a terminal velocity range, a range at which it can hurt you. So we want to make sure that we are well within the safety ranges anytime that we put anything like that together. That being the case. The couple of again, some more kind of thoughts would be, there wouldn't be vehicular traffic down there is kind of what we were thinking at this point. And we've cut off all motor vehicle access to the trail areas. What we'd have to do is work out maybe a weekend or 2 weekends where we can open the gates at a certain time, because there will be chains that are going to be put up and gates that we've been dealing with the parks, and where we can allow access to drive down in there. They can set up a blind, and then they have to be able to pick it up at a certain specific weekend. Of course, that could all be situated on the dates where we're picking the blinds. So all things considered, it could be done. My only concern would be, one is I believe that this should be something that if it's allowed, that should be visited each year. At the beginning of each season, to make sure that it's fitting in with the overall master plan, that being one. It may be that, when the residential areas start, you want to cut that off. It may be that right now you're saying, hey, if this is the way we're going, let's not start something that we're going to end up curtailing in 2 or 3 years. But again, that's up to you guys. Like I said, it's doable. Everything that they presented, it's doable. What we would do as a department is that we would have to set someone out there. They'd have to have access to the trails. We have to be able to be out there making checks, so on and so forth. We've got to be able to make sure that we can access with EMS if anybody has a problem, so on and so forth. So there is some work that needs to be done on the city side in order to make sure that it's safe, even though the duck hunters bring a lot to the table. For instance, some of the roads are impassable for certain vehicles, even a four-wheel drive vehicle. So the roads would have to be graded at some point.
And that's kind of an item that there is, discussion on. The condition of the roads at this point, we don't necessarily consider a bad thing, meaning that it's not really an area that's open for a lot of public use. We have a lot of issues back in the trails whenever it is easily accessible. We have a tremendous amount of vandalism from four-wheelers and Jeeps and people going off-roading in the area. That's been a constant struggle. There are several drug arrests that take place back in those areas, the secluded area. And so limited access to the area, with the manpower and the resources we're able to commit to the area, doesn't necessarily, that's not necessarily a bad thing because it helps us curtail some of the issues because it's not easy to get to.
But is that conducive to duck hunting?
I don't know, and I don't know if that would be something where they, if it was allowed, if they would be, I don't know how far you guys would be comfortable to hike, I guess.
Not all areas do you get a drive into. Like you go out to Fort Cobb, you'll walk almost a mile to get to your blind on the lake. And some of those roads were pretty bad out there, and I understand all that. But we do have some volunteers locally that would, if you'd open it back up, we'd probably make some of those roads drivable.
That's the main road, too. That's the main road, not just like roads going back to the trail like that. The main roads and curves, it's all bad, especially with the construction going on out there.
Yeah, it's definitely a bad part of town for vehicular access, and frankly, that's one of the other things that we would feel the need to take into consideration when you're looking at it is, there is limited access. It's very difficult to get a police charger down there. When Anthony doesn't have the super blazer out there with the pumped up wheels, it's difficult to address issues that happen there. And that's where, we have to kind of also be a little thoughtful, is that it's, we don't have the easiest access to address issues if they're happening out there, and it's not during the summer when we've got Anthony out there.
You could have a local parking area, especially where you go across that secondary dam on the end, on the south end, you could have a parking area where they don't go down there and get stuck and all that. And they could walk to the blinds, but allow them to go in there and set up their blinds and stuff.
Right. And I think all of the issues that, obviously there's, we see, there's a great amount of interest in it, and there's a lot of people who, I think would enjoy it. There's also a tremendous amount of issues that caused it to be, done away with in the first place. I think that, if you wanted to go the direction of looking at opening it up, I think it would be difficult to get all the details of a program tonight. It's something we could probably work through. We've got significant concerns about opening it up, and again, it is something that when it was in the process, they took the initiative to do away with it at one point, but and I'm going to sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here, because that's really that's my goal. It's my goal to not try to present you an opinion from staff, but to present you the options on both sides, and we'll put in place whatever this board chooses. But on the flip side, if you do choose to open it up, even if it's just experimentally, I'm sure that we could work through the issues and find something that could accommodate the activity.
That being said, it seems like, and tonight we're having the master plan presented to us. Tomorrow night. But it seems that, like you said, if we did this, it would be year to year, and it does not seem like that this fits into the master plan of what the city council has requested the lake become. So even if we did this, this would not be an ongoing, it wouldn't be an ongoing thing, not for years to come.
Let's go up there. Thank you.
I was just curious. Two things, well, three. First, on the safety issue, has anybody ever been hurt?
By a duck?
From 96 to what, 2000?
Okay, so the second question then, if nobody has ever been hurt, the only reason it was shut down in 2008 was because somebody shot in the lake house.
No,
I think they gave about 3 or 4 reasons.
I think pretty much
What-
Chuck Stapp knew a little bit more about that than I did because he
You're
was,
also gonna shut the lake down for a little over 4 months. For everything else, for hunters out there, you can't have anybody out there but them. No campers, no riders, no nothing. And who's gonna patrol it and make sure of that? You have nobody out there.
And then the last question was, in regards to the road, how did the new fence and all the cedar get taken out?
The new fence and the.
Yeah,
The
that's
new
up on the fence that's up on the west side of Liberty Lake now, and all the cedars that were taken out.
The fence was put up to try to limit access in there because of the vehicular.
Understand.
The trees were taken down, I think, as part of an ongoing project to continue to increase the usage of that lake and continue to increase the development in the area.
Okay, what equipment was used to do that?
That was city equipment.
Okay, but we couldn't use the city equipment to take care of the roads out there.
The condition of the roads, I think, Maxine, correct me if I'm wrong, is a little bit beyond the capabilities of what some of our equipment has, and frankly, in the list of priorities of things that we need to address, creating further access down there is not really a priority right now. In fact, we're kind of in the phase where we're trying to limit access to that side of the lake because of the problems that we have when there's easy access back there.
And is it correct that if there was deer hunting, the campsite would have to be closed?
That I don't know. I would assume so.
We've never had deer hunting out there.
Yeah, not at Liberty Lake now.
Okay, but what about duck hunting? If we had the duck hunting, would they have to close the campsite, the proposed campsite?
Yes, yes.
They would.
You can't have people out there with shotguns shooting and other people camping, no.
Okay.
You wouldn't have to shut it down. You could have a camping area only, and you could limit the duck hunting until noon time, so the horseback riders and those can come in.
Yeah, but we're talking about people that are staying there over the weekend,
Yeah.
camping out.
Well, I'll give you an example. A good one is at the country club. People night fish out there, and they stay in tents, and you have duck hunting out there, and they do fishing up there on the shore, and they stay in tents all night long.
But that's fishing.
Each one of the duck blinds is on the perimeter of the lake, and everybody's shooting towards the lake. They're not shooting back behind or to the side.
Yeah, but the camp, from what I can tell, the campsite is across the lake from all the blinds.
Used to be there by the lake house.
Campsites, there's the lake house, the campsites are kind of that area.
Right here, and
the-
here's all the
The
blinds.
numbers are the blinds that previously existed.
But if you have bad weather in October and November, and if we fortunate enough to get rain and snow, you can have a lot of campers out there anyway. December,
Okay.
January.
Okay.
And this is
We
the
should talk about it.
area.
One of the things that is coming clear to me is that it's been closed for 4 years now. If we open it up now, even if it was for 1 year at a time, one season at a time, we're going into this master plan of what Liberty Lake is going to be. And so it may only last 1 year. We'll be going to the meeting tomorrow, but to see about this master plan. And we've been hearing about it for the last few months and been participating. I'm not sure how fast it'll move, but it is evolving. That's some of my thoughts on it. Anybody else want to jump in here?
My thinking is, if we're going to have to put money into this, we need to see what kind of money we can get out of it, because we all know that our financial state is important. And so if we're going to invest in a program like this, whether it be for 1 year or 5 years, we need to make sure that we're being fiscally responsible. So I would like to know some dollars and cents before we make a decision.
That's not a bad idea. How do we get that, Matt?
That would all, that would all depend on, not to get ahead of step, but if it was approved, then a secondary item to discuss was what would the cost be for it? And that would really depend. There's what, 20 blinds on this map, so, whatever, okay, so 20, so say you reduce that to 15 or even 10, it'd be whatever the permit fee is times that amount. Revenue-wise, the city doesn't stand to make a lot of revenue from it. Even if you charged an average of $200 a blind and there was 20, that would be, I think, $4,000. I think, if you're looking at it from a dollars and cents perspective, the revenue, you can't really estimate. I'm sure they would sell out. I'm sure everyone would be filled, and so it would really just depend on how much you charged per blind.
But you also get other revenue outside of that, where they go buy shotgun shells, license. It would increase your license sales at Liberty Lake, and also the restaurants around town. It's a good deal. You're missing a good thing, really.
Community revenue.
I thought the deal I went to on the 10-year plan was a 10-year plan. That's what you were going to do. When I went to the meeting before, it was a 10-year plan overview of what you're hoping that you could do out there.
I think the master plan is a long-term plan. I don't think there's really any time frame associated with it. As far as the developments, the park developments out there would become available as funds became available. The residential development would really be, whenever there's an opportunity for that development to take place. That's going to be market-driven. I don't think there's a time frame set on that. It could be immediately. It could be 10 years. It could be 20 years. It could never happen. There could, growth could cease at Forest Hills Road and never come this way. There's not really a time frame on that development, because that would all be determined on what type of private interest there would be, because the city would not be a developer itself. There would be some kind of developer that would come into the project to develop that land residentially, and only the market could decide the time frame for that. I think that I respect the thought of anything we can do to bring in more revenue to the community, and I think that it's always a very good thing to consider, and tourism is a big industry here. I think that the revenue brought in from this would not be the primary motivator if you were to approve it. I think there are certainly things that are good about allowing it, and certainly things that are beneficial about the program. I don't know that it would be a windfall for the city. I don't think it would, the direct fees, the lake permit fees, that whatever, day pass there would be to be included in the lake, I would assume that would be included in the price of the blind. We wouldn't probably double charge someone. You certainly have, the thought of, would people come into town and spend money and shop? We hope so. You can generally average about $50 a day per visitor if they're staying overnight with hotel, and so again, you can certainly estimate some monetary amounts to it.
We're talking about limiting it to Guthrie people as well.
Yeah,
So they're already here.
that's what I keep thinking is they're just going to, load up and leave their house and go down the road.
Yeah, I'm concerned that if we opened it up, it's been closed for all these years, then the park board say, oh, we think it's a good idea. And then we have even more trouble. There's more people. There's less respect for everything. And how do we patrol it so that, somebody's there to say, yeah, there's that, it's okay. They're just duck hunters. It's not.
There's duck hunting at Liberty Lake longer than most of us have been to.
Well, that's right, but that was a long time ago. And that's what I'm saying. It closed down, and obviously it had trouble. So if we open it up again, we suggest, yeah, let's open it up,
So
We're looking at,
try to hear and appoint a subcommittee to run it.
If we did it season by season, and if we consider it at all, I highly recommend that we do it, vote on it every single season, or every single year, I guess you should say. But that has to be broken down too. We have to talk about, are we going to open it up just for Guthrie people? If we are that, then that's a whole different thing.
That's what I would suggest. We got your address.
You're in violation of federal law then.
Yeah, he says we're not.
Not if it's a chance. They get away with it in Oklahoma City. They do it at the Fort Cobb where the federal people run it. You do it at a chance there. So I know because I've been there. I drew a blind there.
But maybe,
Like a raffle, isn't it?
Yep, it's just like a raffle. So
And that's how they get around the legalities of it.
right.
Was
You're
Liberty,
going to have any of that problem anyway that I see. Limit to a Guthrie address and leave it at that. You own the lake and it's a chance. There's not going to be somebody come in here and file a lawsuit against you discriminating because you have a federal permit. It's a chance. It's open to a Guthrie resident. It isn't. Oklahoma City, you know, they publish it in the paper. You have to have your fee in by a certain time. And I know because I was on Overholser last year. So.
I think for matters of simplicity for the board, I think if you consider it, you know, and again, I'm not trying to sway you one way or the other. I'm trying to give you all the information so that you guys can make the policy decision. If you choose to allow it, I would recommend that you essentially just vote. I would say that you either, you know, in your motion, that you would do some sort of motion to allow duck hunting and authorize or ask staff to establish a program for the 2012-2013 season.
well, let me ask you this, Matt. Now, if we did that, but then doesn't that go to the council? Would they
The
not?
only thing that would go to the council would be the fee. The only thing that would go to the council, you guys have rulemaking authority. These rules are in your hand. The city council can override your decisions, but you have rulemaking authority.
they can amend or.
They can amend,
or
they can modify.
override, adopt, or
Generally,
reject.
if you made a decision that, you know, that the public didn't like, they could appeal to their council member to try to take it forward as a council item, and the council, you know, like I said, has the overriding authority, but just as far as establishing the policy and setting the rules, that authority lies with this board, and as long as there's not a conflict with the council's desires, it stands.
But there could be.
There could be.
So we could do this and then we're back where we were, you know, that they say, no, we don't like that.
Right, the council can always override the
That's
park
what I
board.
want to know.
But,
It
but
doesn't matter what
just
we-
in general, I mean, you don't, if you want to make a rule, you want to put something in place, it doesn't have to be blessed by the city council. But that's what I would recommend as far as, you know, trying to wrap your hands around it, because it would be very confusing to try to sit there and plan all the details of how the raffle would happen, who's going to be allowed to do it, what the cost. If you're interested in doing it, you know, I would recommend that some sort of motion be put in place to allow it for the, you know, 2012-11 season, and ask staff to form a work group to come up with the details of the program. And then at that point, I would vote yes or no, depending on if you want to see duck hunting at Liberty Lake or not. We'll make it as simple as we can with you on the staff level. If you want to see it out at Guthrie Lake, vote yes, and we will take care of the details. If you don't want to see it out at Guthrie Lake, vote no, or sorry, Liberty Lake, and vote no. Unless you want it at Guthrie Lake, you guys. I didn't think that would be too appealing to you. So, and that way you guys can just decide on the overall issue of should it be allowed, and we can, and then if we're authorized, we can work through the details of the actual program if we need to put it in place this year.
I am, and I would, to vote on, I would also restrict it to limiting it to Guthrie residents on that chance, and to vote every year.
I would not recommend doing the Guthrie residents in your motion. That's a detail I think that we should investigate further.
I know,
I mean,
if you
since
say
we're getting conflicting information, I think we would definitely want
Okay.
to. I would just, you know, if you authorize us to work out the details of the 2012-13 program, we could address all of those items and make sure that, you know, we're not on any shaky ground legally.
The problem that I have with this is that this was voted on by the park board in 2008. It was unanimous. It was sent to the city council, and it was voted on unanimously.
Was you all there? Was you all?
No, we
Not
were
me.
not here.
None of us.
We were not here. But I mean, there was no dissenting vote on this, and there was presentation by rangers and the police chief and several other people that thought that it was a safety issue. That's my thoughts.
Well, what do you think about going ahead and voting?
My question is, do you want a roll call vote?
I think that's the only way. Yeah, I mean, that's probably the only way we can get all the individual votes since we don't have the board set up for the Parks Board.
Okay. Somebody needs to phrase this. I'm not good at
How
phrasing.
we're gonna do it?
And the way you phrase your motion can also have an impact on how you vote. I mean, if you, your options are to make the motion similar to what I just said, and then vote yes if you'd like to see duck hunting, vote no if you wouldn't. You could also make a motion that says to deny the request for duck hunting, and then, so whoever makes the motion, the phrasing will be important on how you vote.
Got it. You're gonna make a motion.
Joe, you're good at this.
Oh, I'm great at this. Huh? Well, first of all, I'll make a motion that leans in the favor of the duck hunters and see how the board feels. I make a motion that we consider having duck hunting for a season, that staff looks into making it safe for all people, how many blinds, the cost, and that it's revisited year to year. Do we have a second?
I will second.
All right, so just to clarify, during the roll call vote, if you vote yes, you are voting to allow duck hunting for this duck hunting season and authorizing staff to work out the details of a program for this year.
And that season includes from approximately October 23rd to approximately February 1st. Is that correct?
Maybe February 15th, but
Okay,
So it'd be considered the 2012/13 season,
Right.
correct?
okay,
there you go.
okay.
Lori Fortney?
No.
Sherry French?
Yes.
Joe Chappell?
Yeah.
Jean Lucina?
I'm sorry, no.
Jesse Bryan?
Yes.
We have 3 yeses, 2 nos.
Motion passes. We will get with, actually, I'd like to get with you at some point in the next few weeks to establish, what we would need to do to put it in place. We will have to take whatever cost we discussed, that will have to go to council. So essentially, it will be allowed this year, but we'll have to work out the details of the program, and we can do that together.
Cool. I'm sure all the duck hunters in the country will like to hear that.
All right.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for the
Welcome.
public input. That's-
Yes. Probably in 2008, I don't think there was a single hunter here.
If you weren't here, it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. We're not hunters. We don't know.
I will say something. If you'd like to come, and I'm fortunate enough to get a blind, I'll show you some trained retrievers, and you could actually go duck hunting with us.
Oh, boy.
Likewise.
Got to.
Yeah.
I got something to say.
Can.
You talked about doing something to the roads.
Yeah, yeah, I got some volunteers.
All of them.
Taking a cat in there.
Okay. Okay, I appreciate it. You can meet with this guy right here.
Yeah,
Okay, let's move on to discussion and consideration.
Actually,
What?
there's no need to discuss item 4. That's
okay.
not necessary to be on there. That would be a companion item to the duck hunting.
Oh,
But
okay.
we don't need to do anything ordinance-wise, since the only thing we'll have to take to council is the fees.
Okay, great. We're moving right along here. Number 5, discussion and consideration of net fishing at Guthrie Lake and Liberty Lake.
This item is one that, I know that we're dealing with a lot of issues of, talking about the way things have been for, many, many years in a row. And unfortunately, change is a part of life, and sometimes we, have to address, coming situations. And part of that is dealing with the increased usages at our lakes, the increased variety of desires out there, the transition, the master plan, and all of those things. And as you guys recall, we amended the rules to the lakes and parks, I think, in the spring. And this was one of the things that I think changed along with those rules. That was a meeting. We didn't receive any public input, but now that the rules are in place, which is common, generally there's not a lot of attention paid to something. We don't all sit around and just look at agendas on the internet because we all have lives. and this was something that was, I think, wrapped up in the new rules revisions, and something that's just now kind of being noticed because it's affecting people. And we've gone over this, and we took a lot of rules from other places. We didn't sit and write our own detailed wildlife rules. So staff's recommendation on this item is simply to allow net fishing for bait fish at the lakes. We don't see any issues with that. It's just something that's currently, I think got wrapped up in the rules changes that it wasn't allowed. But we don't have any concern with it happening, as long as it's for bait fish.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I think there's some people that signed up to speak to this item, so it would be item 5, and I think we have Chuck Stepp is the first person to sign up to speak to it.
Well, you pretty well answered the question. There's no bait houses out at the lake anymore. They don't sell anything. And the only thing that's legal out there is to use the cast nets to catch shad,
right,
which is a bait fish. Everything else has to be released.
Right.
So you answered your own question.
And that's something we certainly have, staff-wise, we certainly have no issue with it. It's just something that got caught up in the rule changes and, probably an oversight on our process. We didn't realize the effect it would have. It's been brought to our attention. Staff, frankly, just recommends that you vote yes to allow it. And
Well, I make a motion that
they've signed up, so if anyone else does want to speak to it, they
This is-
certainly have the right, but if not.
This is just about the net fishing. Does anybody want to talk about net fishing?
Well, it's, the net fishing is what I was wanting, but another thing is where they changed the hours to 10 o'clock.
That's another item.
That's the next one. Yes.
Did any of y'all want to see the shad, what it is?
He actually brought it.
I wouldn't mind. Heck, might as well. I've never seen one.
That way y'all have an understanding of what we're doing.
Can you throw it across the police chief?
Have you ever seen a shad? No? Oh, a shad net. Oh, I wanted to fish. You haven't. You've never fished?
They normally scoop out in the open water where your crappie and a lot of your other fish are running structures such as brush and stuff like that. If you throw one of these nets in the brush, you're gonna tear it. You're gonna get it hung out, you're gonna tear it. And like Chuck knows, and all fishermen knows, state regulations is, if you do catch crappie in your net or bass, you immediately have to release them. You cannot have them because they are to be caught by pole and line only.
Because that's fair, right?
Because they're game fish.
Okay.
Against the law, too.
Yes.
Federal law.
Federal,
But anyway,
okay.
this is a hand throw net, it is not a gill net, it's not a seine, it's just a cast net, it opens up and sinks. And then once it sinks, then you pull on the rope and it closes the bottom of the net. And you have to use no larger than 3/8 mesh. That is state law. You cannot have a net anything larger than 3/8 square mesh.
So pretend that's the lake. I just want to see.
I haven't thrown one of these in quite a while. My son Chuck usually does throw them. So we just use him will throw it. It just spreads out. So.
That's it?
I used to catch him all the time doing it.
Really?
Okay.
Hit the water,
And you
it'll
have to
just
pull it.
spread out.
Okay, and they're little guys.
I'll show you what shad looks like.
It's very rare to catch a bass, catfish, or anything in those nets. You catch perch and shad usually.
And if you ever try to catch one of these on a polling line, good luck.
The smell of it is smell.
But anyway, this is shad.
He's gonna pull it out. I don't want to touch it.
See, who says there's not any
Oh,
benefit
Yeah,
being on an advisory board?
Okay, boy, it's a big guy. But that looks like a big guy. I mean, that's what you cut up and use on bait to,
Yes.
okay.
I cut,
That's a fairly large one, yes.
yes,
They eat small bugs.
but when we catch them that size,
Okay,
And I think it's important for the board to know that they're also one of the fastest reproducing fish in the lake.
Yes. We're not just
And
like
too many can be detrimental to the game fish.
because
wow.
they feed primarily on your similar to plankton or protozoa, and that's what your little fry fish of your bass, your crappie, your little baby fish feed on. And these guys, they eat a lot of it.
I'm curious, when you went out and you did your fish netting, then when are you going to fish? Is this what you're gonna wanna use at when you want us to open up the lake after midnight? Or when do you fish with this crop that you got? Right away?
With shad, you can fish with them from the bank with rod and reel. You can use them whole, you can cut them.
No, I understand all that. I just wanna know, after you've caught them, when is it you're going to then go out and fish for them? Immediately. That's what I wanna know. Immediately. You're not gonna save them till after midnight.
Well, I mean,
Well, I'm just curious.
if you're fishing, like, if I catch them in the lake and I wanna go fishing on a creek or a river somewhere, then I will take them to the river or creek, and there I'll fish to 3, 4
Okay.
o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
Okay.
What he's getting at,
I guess what I'm trying to say is you're not necessarily saying I'm one of the ones that wants for you to open the lake up after midnight, all night, open it up all night, because I'm fishing for these little chad.
What he's getting at is, like this, we don't normally throw any of them away because you can't keep shad very long alive once you catch them.
even in
So
live,
we normally take them home and we'll put them in a freezer or refrigerator and keep them
Okay.
cold and reuse them. You know, take them the next time you go fishing so you're not having to catch more. You know, sometimes you will, sometimes you won't if you have extra.
So maybe sometimes you're just out there just getting bait. You're not even going to be fishing that day.
Normally, if we're catching bait, we're going to fish immediately when we catch bait, but you do use them to catfish late at night, which would fall into your times
Right, that's what I wanted to know. Yeah.
because bait fish that size, your bigger fish, your flatheads and blues, that's what they eat.
Okay.
They prefer them. You know, if you're going to fish for big fish, you use big bait. Simple as that.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, well, it seems pretty clear. Does anybody want to talk about this? Okay, somebody needs to clarify so that we can vote.
If someone would make a motion to allow for net fishing for
Somebody
bait fish,
I'll make a motion that we allow bait fishing at both Guthrie Lake and Liberty Lake, right?
with a net.
With a net.
With a
fishing for
net,
bait.
net.
yeah, net fishing. I thought I said that, I'm sorry.
Cast net.
Ask now, okay. Oh, it just discussed, net fishing is all it says, okay.
Okay, do we have a second?
I will second.
Okay, pick one. Okay, do you need line item or
I
whatever
think we
you
can
call
probably
it?
just take a,
Okay, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, it passes. We're knocking it out.
that's right.
Okay, this is discussion and consideration of hours at Liberty Lake and Lake Guthrie and Guthrie Lake.
All right, this item is something that was part of the rule changes that took place in the spring. limiting the hours of the lake basically for any activity other than camping. Is that correct, Anthony? That's the only activity that's currently allowed past 10. Is it 6 a.m. to 10?
Yes.
Okay, and so currently the hours of the lake for anything other than camping is 6 to 10. This was initiated by concerns brought up from residents in the area of, I think particularly from the Guthrie Lake area, it's an interesting lake. I think that's where most of the fishing takes place, but it's also the residential lake, so there is, I think a little bit of a difference of priority and use from the residents that live around the lake and the people using the lake. So we bring it to you to discuss and to see if you want to make any changes to those hours that were put in place. I believe we've got several people signed up to talk on this issue.
Okay, who's first?
Chuck Stepp. Oh, I'm sorry, we got John Goodman? Okay.
Okay.
Like my son had said before, I was at the 19th meeting. About the time that we get up to the lake, when it's so hot and everything, around 8:30, 9 o'clock, it's starting to cool off. And by the time you get your bait caught and you get set up to fish, then 10 o'clock shows up and you don't get to fish. Where we used to be open to midnight, and then on Friday night, you could fish all night long to Saturday. And then if you had a holiday on Monday, then you could fish Sunday night all night long.
Okay.
And we'd like to see our hours put back the way they were.
So are you saying Friday night, 24 hours, Saturday night, 24 hours?
Only if you had a holiday on Monday.
Okay.
On Sunday.
Friday and Saturday. If you have a holiday on Monday, then it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Got it. Okay.
And this, just a question for clarification on when there's fishing after hours in the evening, is it happening from the bank or is it happening from boats?
From both.
Both?
Yes. Because we drift fish also when the wind is blowing pretty decent, because we cover more territory on the water drift fishing. It's when you're sitting on the bank with your rods, you're waiting for that fish to come to you. And when you're drift fishing, you're drifting over where he can possibly be. You're covering more territory. I mean, you got your lines out and you're just drifting along with your bait. And like I say, your fish may be in one part of the lake and you may be sitting on the shore waiting on the fish to come to you, when if you're in a boat drift fishing, you have more chance of catching a fish from the boat than you do sitting on the bank. But you will catch fish, from fishing on the bank, because fish are constantly moving.
Okay. Okay. Well, that answers a lot for me. Thank you.
And just for simplicity's sake, we can certainly tell that this is an issue that you're all interested in. However, I'm sure you are all, don't want to be here all night, and I'm sure the Parks Board doesn't either. I think we can, by the size of the crowd, how many people agree with everything he said? Okay, is there anyone that signed up to speak that has a kind of a different point of view on it or different information? Because I think if it's going to be the same information, repeated over and over and again, I think that the Parks Board probably gets the point, and we can probably have enough discussion unless there's new points to be made.
Is there a Guthrie resident out there, other than the person sitting on the board, that has an objection?
That's what I wanted to ask Mr. Stepp, who you gave your objection to the duck hunting and your reasoning when you were a ranger. Obviously, you don't feel the all-night fishing gives us anything to worry about. I know the fishermen here probably, but once we open it, it opens it up
Right.
to anybody.
In '74, we had the same hours you have now, 6 in the morning till 10 at night. We had a major problem for a couple of years, people coming out. The sun from June, July, August, September, it doesn't get dark till 9:30. People are buying permits and we're telling them they got to quit at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
People are coming out there to relax, fish, have a nice time. You've got to leave the lake open till midnight so people can relax. And then we discovered that they really wanted to fish all night long on the weekends, and we never had a problem with that. The problem is we have no patrolman out there to take care of that now. Most everybody would really like those hours extended back to what they were before. Most everybody that goes out to the lake are sportsmen. Our biggest problem are the teenagers and the students from USO, Edmond, Guthrie, going out there to drink their beer, partying, and making out. There's nobody to stop that, and that's what we need to do. But the hours need to be extended to what they were before. That's where your revenue was coming from. We see very few people out there now even fishing because the hours have been restricted. Nobody's going out there.
Right. Okay, I appreciate this. Thank you. Resident over there, do you have anything to add that we should know about from living there?
Well, I've lived there a long time.
Okay.
Since 1989, and used to be, before you hired good city management, nobody took care of the lake, and I'm sure you'll all agree. You mowed your own grass in front of the lake, or it grew up wild. People have fished in front of our house all these years, all night, and we've never had any problems. Teenagers are going to be teenagers now. They're going to try to find a dark place to whatever we used to do. I vaguely remember, but maybe I don't pay enough attention, and maybe I don't live, I live right where there's not a lot of, there's trees or anything like that. So, I may not get what other people get there, but I think limiting until 10 o'clock at night in the summer or any time. I don't understand that. I don't know. Obviously, we need to come to more meetings. I think that's what it boils down to. If you're having a meeting, we ought to be here, just in case you make rules that, like the net casting and stuff, that don't make any sense. I think the time, people like to fish.
Yes.
And Guthrie doesn't have a lot of opportunities to do much of anything. Maybe that's where the teenagers got it. I don't know. But, you really don't. We don't have movies. You just don't have anything here. You have tourism. Well, we're not tourists. We live here. And I don't care if people use our lake. I think it's a beautiful place. It's a wonderful place to live. Share it. Don't be so selfish.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm assuming the applause is for the line when she said hired good city management.
Well, we really appreciate you all. Being non-fishermen, we just don't know until we get feedback. That's what's so wonderful about Guthrie, and the fact that we have wonderful people show up to help us make these decisions. Is there discussion?
I have a question. When we changed the rules, it was kind of targeted at Liberty Lake with swimming. Is that correct? Swimming and boating?
There were, I think the big changes with the rules, the big changes were to open up and allow for the swimming, generally swimming at Liberty Lake, to allow the option of swimming at Guthrie Lake in the event of a special event, like the triathlon or other things. And then the changes of the hours, I think primarily the motivation of the hour changes is because we had heard from some residents of the concern. Obviously, there's a different idea from some of the residents out there, too, that we hadn't really heard from. Liberty Lake, some of the hour controls, I think some of the motivation of some of the hour limitations at Liberty Lake was also to try to curtail some of the problems that go on there late at night, since it is so remote. So this is really one, we'd like to have something, if you change it, we'd like to have something where it could be easy for our folks to respond if they were needed, something that would be sensitive to the neighborhoods, something fair, something, there's, there could be several options. And just to clarify, what were the hours prior to them being changed, Anthony?
See, April 1st to September 30th, 6 a.m. to 12 a.m., Sunday through Thursday. October 1st to March 31st, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., Sunday through Saturday inclusive. The times that it was open 24 hours was each Friday and Saturday, Memorial Day, Independence Day, and Labor Day.
Chuck, when you were out there patrolling and you had issues late at night, it was one of the things that we discussed when we were kind of talking about, options and enforcement and all of that, is one of the concerns we have is that even during the summer when when usually we have a dealership that's generous enough to give us a watercraft so that we can get out there, if you ever encountered issues late at night with boats on the water and had to get to them, or how did you do that? Because that's a concern.
That's the same thing he had.
So but if it was 12 at night, you would load the watercraft into the water and then go and, okay.
Yeah, we had lights, and I also had a boat furnished by the city at that time.
Okay.
So we had a boat and a ski-doo, but actually a wave runner.
Yeah.
So yeah, we patrolled that. But most of the boating that late at night is strictly people fishing. They're not skiing, running up and down there going really fast. They're just fishing because it's too dark to do anything. So we never really had a major issue with that one.
Officer Gibbs, do you have anything to add to all of this?
Well, again, my input is not going to be my own opinion, but just from a safety and enforcement issue, there's a couple of things I may recommend, and this is going to be based on the department's ability to be able to enforce the rules and different things out there. Let's see here. First of all, I would recommend, based on all of the opinion that's represented here, that we change the hours for fishing only. That would be my recommendation. It's a tremendous shutdown day use at 10 o'clock. Because, or at whatever particular time. That way we do take the people that aren't out there for any type of wholesome activity and we can move them on. That way, so if somebody's out camping or something like that, then they can go ahead and sleep. Because like I said, most fishermen don't wake anybody up. It's just the thing. So.
Everybody who's out there before must have a permit to be on the lake, regardless of what they were doing. They had to have a permit.
Sure.
The kids and people were out there just partying.
That they can party out there for a while. So, and it's just
the legitimate partiers now.
Legitimate party. So that would be my suggestion is one, change it for fishing only.
You mean with boats as well?
That, now, again, from a department's perspective, we would only want bank fishing because of our ability to be able to get out on the water and enforce it. Now, I know that's unpopular, and I'm just basically stating from a department's position. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to be swayed in that way, because we can rise to the occasion and purchase, that kind of thing. So the deal is that, yeah.
Purchase.
Yes. But at any rate, that would be our feeling, because our patrol, most of the lake is acceptable if you can walk to it, a patrol officer can get to it. So therefore, it would be enforceable by any patrolman at that point in time. If it's bank fishing only after, say, 10 o'clock, all boats have to be off the lake at 10, something like that. Take a look here at my notes. Other than those particular issues, I don't see anything. Those would be my only two input, was if we changed hours only for fishing, and then bank fishing is what the department would prefer based on just an enforcement issue. So,
which I think was brought up the last time that you all were here, and they said, well, this Oklahoma City, Edmond, if you're not out there fishing after 11, then you're gone. But that has to have somebody patrol it.
You have to have a permit,
and
fishing permit.
Well, right, but they're fishing. They've got their permit and they are only fishing. And I'm like, well, how do we keep the ones that are the undesirables? We don't have 24/7 security.
And by this, I just want to make sure that I'm saying we're not adding any type of extra permit. A day use for fishing would cover. As long as you're fishing,
Right.
you can stay. And to answer the enforcement issue, that's just the patrolman. You know, when he shows up and maybe somebody's, they're halfway camping, mainly partying, and they've got a pole out there for, and they're not really catching anything. I mean, you can reel in. There's several things you can do to figure out whether they're actually fishing. If they're not fishing, then they're out. We can take care of that. If they, and if they're doing anything wrong, meaning they don't have a permit, they have alcohol, they're on the spillway, even at cast netting, can't cast net off from the spillway, or anything like that. But if they're on any of those locations, if it's at night, anything like that, we can enforce those issues in a number of ways: warning, citation, arrest, or revoking their permit. That even being a daily or an annual. So if it happens again and again, we can just say, you know what, hey, we're pulling your permit. And so there's several things we can do, that we have tools available to us, and to help kind of weed that out. So I'm sure that if you guys choose to extend the hours, it's something that as a department we can well handle, and we can still enforce these issues if you guys so choose to do that. My only, and again, there was actually one other thing I thought about. Lakeshore Drive seems to be kind of a disputed area that's kind of on that area, and that across the street, across the way over there in that green belt area. I've heard some input saying, why don't you guys just shut down that area, bank fishing, at say sundown, something like that. Sun up to sundown, you can be over there for days, and then that. So that's something that you guys can do, because there seemed to be so many residents at that last informational reading that really wanted that area to be off limits after dark because of the different issues they had. I think something about fire, something about parties, something and that kind of thing. But again, it's not something that we couldn't do. Even if you opened it up in that area, we can still enforce that, especially if it's on the bank.
Well,
But
that's fenced off right now, so you can't get in. You're talking about Lakeshore and Lakeside Drive?
no,
On the east side of the lake?
west side. West side, yeah. East side, there's fenced off areas, because we did find that those two properties that were in dispute, actually the property owners owned basically they owned that land. So that's why they fenced that off.
They own an existing roadway is what I'd like to know.
That I'm just telling you what it is that they told me from upstairs. So.
That's not the case, that's a half
The lake owns all that land. Those owners don't.
Okay. I'm just letting you know what our own planning department had come down and told me. They even showed me a map. So.
If you go to the map that's on your website, it shows that their property doesn't even touch the water.
If I can cut this off, this is going to be nothing that we can do as far as that goes. That would be in a different venue. So let me just address that particular location. It's on the west side of the Lakeshore Drive there.
But on the east side there, that's been open for, I've been keeping that open for
That's,
years.
not to cut anyone off, that's not an issue we can get into because it's not on the agenda. So we're bordering on what we can talk about. That's a separate issue. I think the area though that is clearly public property is the side on the west part of the lake, because you've got the homes here, then you've got the road that divides the property, and there's that green belt area that's clearly public property, and that's the area that you guys will need to decide, should there be any special consideration from bank fishing on that during hours of the night because of the proximity of the residents.
Well, how do we find out what you say is true, those, like Bob and Bonnie Turtle and whoever lives just north of them, their property?
I can talk to you about that after the meeting if you'd like, but again, we need to quit talking about that because that's not an agenda item. So we're getting outside of what we're allowed to do in the Public Meetings Act.
So did I answer your question as far as that goes?
Sort of. I'm really on a spot because that's my neighbor over there. She's on Lake Shore, and she has absolutely no problem with it. We're so close to the lake. In fact, you had to come out one time, put out a fire.
Yep.
That somebody had camped out and left the fire, and they got in a fight, and they left. And we look out, and the fire's going. So I'm really in a quandary. I like the fishermen. I know they won't do anything. But there's a lot of people on Lake Shore do not feel like she does.
But
You
they're
know,
not here.
To open it up.
Liberty, I mean, if the lake is so small, you start restricting people from where they can actually fish, you're gonna hurt our reputation, your income, and so on and so forth. If you're gonna open it, it needs to be open all the way.
You know, the other thing I'm wondering, if we said, okay, we're going to change the hours back to have them open all night, what is council going to do? Because they very definitely voted to put these new hours in.
I would think.
No, they didn't.
Well, do you think they would go with opening it back up
They,
all night?
unless there was a conflict, I mean, what, the decision that you guys make is the rule, unless there's a conflict. I think if you guys made that rule, and based on the input that I'm getting here, I don't see that being an issue that council would overturn.
Yeah, we're talking to y'all, not council.
No, I know, but it eventually goes to them.
What about us that borrow permits this year before you change the rules?
Well, I think we're going to vote on it, and we'll be able to see in just a little bit.
Maxine is going to hand across this is the old rules sheet, and it's got in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see the former hours, which is what I believe this gentleman here, in fact, he was spot on those particular hours. So that is what they used to be.
Can I ask a question? What happened to the like person like Chuck? What happened? Was it money? What?
Money.
Well, aren't we
I think
making
Chuck retired, and I think monetary wise
But in the city making more money now, I read it in the paper.
we are making more money, but we also have a lot more demands, and so I mean that's, you know, we got to prioritize, and I think we've got a very good solution, even though he's not out there 24/7. I mean, the job that Anthony does is extraordinary, and we're very happy with that.
I agree. He does a good job.
And let's not complicate things. You know, we don't even know how to fish up here. You get us too confused. Did you know Shad?
Yeah, if Sherry ever caught a shad, she'd have her
Sure,
picture
yeah,
taken
yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
In reference to no boats after 10 o'clock or something, state law says as long as you have navigation lights on your boat, you can be on the waterways. Are we going to restrict people that drive their cars on roadways just because, you know, they've got lights, just because we don't want them to be there? I mean, there's a lot of folks that fish out of boats at night. I mean, there's not a whole bunch, but there's a few. And I really don't like the thought of, you know, limiting it. And if you're going to let people fish, they should be able to use their boats on the lake.
Okay.
Because there are residents that live on the lake that use their boats on the lake through the extended hours too. Who's going to enforce it on them?
Right, right. Well, I appreciate this. Let's,
Other than the cars, do not drive on a normal street because I live on it.
I mean, it's the same deal. State law says you can as long as you have running lights, red and green on the front and clear in the back.
okay,
But it is in your state fishing regulations.
okay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
One thing a lot of people don't realize, all the waters in the state of Oklahoma belong to the public.
All the waters in the state of Oklahoma belong to the state of Oklahoma.
That's right. And so you have a helicopter and you go across private property and go into a pond or a lake. You can fish there, as long as you don't step on the land. And I always found that to be quite interesting.
That's a weird
I'm wondering how Guthrie and Liberty Lake come into that jurisdiction.
I mean they're
I guess the city owns the land all surrounding those.
well they're city-owned lake. They're not Corps of Engineer lakes. You know, obviously we have to work with the state as far as water rights go, but I mean as far as, you know, I don't think I've ever heard of a case, because I know it's pretty common business for cities to regulate the usage of their parks and lakes. So I don't know that I've ever had definition on what would happen if, you know, someone jumped across the property to get in the water. I don't know what we'd do at that point, but.
There's no easement around the lake.
What's that?
There's no easement around the lake anymore?
This is a separate issue. We cannot talk. I will be happy to spend as much time talking about this with you after the meeting as you'd like. But for the fourth time, this is not on the agenda. We will break the law if we talk about it.
Let's go ahead and get this to vote, because I think it's pretty simple if you, I like the idea of the old rules used midnight, till midnight, and then Friday and Saturday, 24 hours. Can somebody verbalize this?
Can I quickly ask, we suggested on the duck hunting that we could do it for a year, see how it works out. Is there any possibility to do that with the opening, changing the hours?
Yeah, you guys can easily put this on an agenda at any time to revisit the rules.
Okay.
So it's not season-based like so at any point, if it was a conflict, you can always revisit this issue.
Okay.
My only suggestion is that when you word it, that you would change it for fishing only. And then if that does include boating, if you could just, maybe just speak that as far as into that verbiage. That way, we can add that to the rules and make that amendment, and it'd be clear. So.
Okay, I appreciate that. Okay, so, Joe.
Motion Joe.
I'm not gonna say.
I thought this was supposed to be an easy board to be on.
Hey, you made poor Jesse, one of the newest members, have the swing vote on the first issue. So.
Well, we're missing a member.
That's,
We are?
No,
we're
we're
not.
no, this is it.
No, oh, goodness, okay.
I just forgot, I gotta be someplace. I just don't know about the boat thing. Anybody else have any thoughts on the boat, just the boat part of it? I mean, if we can't, if the city can't get out to inspect the boats.
I just think it's just part of the fishing. It's just all-inclusive. That's my views.
they're not large lakes. I mean, if worse comes to worse, we can set an officer at the boat ramp, put a spotlight on them, and wait them out. I mean, if there's a problem.
That's what they've done in the past. If they had a problem, they turn around and
Mr. Step has hit me with the spotlight. I was out, way out on the lake with no lights on, drifting.
We've never had a problem with
He turned me
drones
on
out
the
there after
spotlight.
dark. Everybody slows down, they're fishing only. There's no major problem.
And I do think we should add,
only after 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
They can
fishing
like a
only
golf cart,
after 10
button
o'clock.
around.
Fishing only after 10 o'clock.
But she's leaving the boat on. Oh, but you're talking fishing off a boat, too?
To me, that
Okay.
just makes
All
sense to
inclusive.
have, yeah. That's what people are used to. There haven't been a problem.
And all night on
Why
weekends.
fix something that's not broke?
And all night on weekends.
Uh-huh. And then.
Just fishing.
Yes.
Now, you're saying midnight normally, all night on weekends?
Friday.
On Friday and Saturday?
Uh-huh.
Yep.
And then if there's a holiday.
I'd give holidays and weekends, whatever you choose, I'd give holidays and weekends the same consideration.
Okay. Okay, well then I'm gonna make a motion. See if I get it all in here. I'm gonna make a motion to go back to the old hours for fishing only with a permit. I think that pretty much covers it. I don't have to go into the specific hours.
Is that, I mean, that's pretty clear cut, isn't it?
That includes boating.
Yeah,
Yes.
as long as it's fishing, right?
And it includes boating,
As long as it's fishing.
as long as they're fishing.
So essentially, the only uses that will be allowed at those lakes after 10 o'clock, you can be camping and you can be fishing.
Yes.
Everything else is prohibited after 10.
And you guys need to run everybody else off.
Self-regulate.
They're out there drinking and making noise and we're trying to fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're gonna hear a phone call.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't want those either.
Matt, are you saying camping on the Lake Shore Drive, too? I thought that was always off there. You
That's,
can't
yeah,
camp.
right.
Okay.
I mean, they're designated campsites. They're-
Designated
they can't come
camping
in
area.
on
Okay.
that area.
All right.
I will second the motion.
Okay, does this have to be a line item, or do we yay and nay it?
Let's do a roll call vote on it, because I don't have a good feel on how you're all going to vote.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Lori Courtney,
Yes.
Sherry French,
Yes.
Joe Chappell,
Yes.
Jean Lucina,
I'll go yes with fishing only.
Jesse Bryan.
Yes.
Guess we didn't need a roll
Unanimous
call
yes.
vote.
Can we go home now?
Absolutely.
Okay.
As long as you get
Announcement
blazed through those 2 items.
from staff?
Just announcement for us, tomorrow night, we've got tomorrow night we do have the final presentation of the Liberty Lake Master Plan. This is something that may be a little bit new to some of the newer members of the Parks Board. This is something that was initiated last September, October, and it's gone through, I think, 4 public meetings to this point. The first one with the City Council to get the overall land use desires. The second one with the Parks Board specifically to get your desires for different types of parks amenities out there. And then the third one, the presentation of the 2 alternatives, which you guys met jointly with the City Council and gave them their guidance of what you liked about this alternative and this alternative. This is the final presentation of the plan where they've taken all your wants and desires to the one plan. They'll present it to us, and then that will be something that throughout budget processes and throughout future planning, there'll be at the plan that we kind of use as the backdrop for decisions out at the Liberty Lake.
And that one's not open to the public.
Oh,
it's open to the public, but no comments?
Right, it's certainly open to the public. It's a presentation only. We've already gone through all of the public input meetings on that process throughout the year, so this is simply the presentation from the consultant but public is certainly welcome. They're welcome to any meeting we have.
That's tomorrow,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, tomorrow night at 6.
6, not 6:30.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, is that all the announcement from the staff?
Anthony, Maxine,
Okay.
I don't have anything.
Okay, request comments from members. How about we adjourn?
I've got nothing. I make a motion that we adjourn.
You can just adjourn.
Okay.
Thank you all.